rocks around the Billy Squire, big pound wow, rocks around the Billy Squire, big pound wow, big.
We're back. Round 2, attempt number 2.
Round 2. Oh god.
I don't remember any of what we covered the first time. I think it was just Ronan talking about flamingos.
Probably for most of it. I did wonder before coming on this, like, I hope it is still the same album, because otherwise I'm gonna be like a kid who's done the wrong homework or something like that.
We switched it out without realising.
As far as I'm aware anyway, it's the same album. But yeah, sorry again for last time, and thank you for understanding.
Oh no, that's all good. I'm glad we've managed to sort of rearrange.
It created a unintended season break, so we're now in season 2. Cal,
Ooh.
Congratulations on being guest number 2 of season 2.
It was all intentional.
Exactly, yeah. It was all it was all set up. But you're following on from our Taylor Swift episode, so
Oh wow, big boots to fill.
you might get some lingering Swifties curious in what you've picked. Oh, it's not Taylor Swift. Oh, there's no point.
Yeah, I wonder what the Swifties would think of Lemaitre.
They're all too busy trying to get tickets, to be fair. Taylor Swift ticket season.
It's a frenzy out there, yeah.
I've seen sides of people that I never knew. I never even know they were Swifties, let alone, like, you just think that they're these, like, regular people walking around and you get on with them and you know them for a few years or whatever, and then you mention, oh, Taylor Swift, and they just get crazy eye.
Yeah.
Look at you, like, you've just unlocked something deep within them. Talking to Anna last week kind of revealed as well is there's a lot of people who, like, they don't talk about it because they've got no one to talk about it to, but then when as soon as you mention Taylor Swift, it's
That's their thing, and you never knew.
yeah.
We're exactly the right generation for it, really, aren't we? It's a bit like, I don't know, I think of other like Harry Potter. I mean, maybe that was like Harry Potter was more like the half generation above us, but where we like actively grew up matching the audience perfectly, you know. And I think that came through with what Anna was saying about Taylor Swift. Like, she'd have been writing about the teenage experience exactly when we were kind of teenagers.
In the teenage experience.
Yeah, I just think it seems to have kind of.
That said, though, there are people at work whose one of my colleagues is younger than me, and she's a massive Swiftie. And then I've got colleagues who are like a bit older than me, and their partners are like massive Swifties. So it clearly is a cross
Universal
generation. We're talking, millennial down to Zoomer. I think the full spectrum.
That's not that big a spectrum.
I think the only thing that's weird to me about singing like music like that is these artists obviously sing it when they're quite young as well. But then they're gonna reach an age where they're doing like tours or whatever and trying to, I don't know, perform their like past albums or whatever, and trying to sing about like being a teenager when now they're maybe like in their 40s. I feel like it's not music that will age well for them in a live performance.
This is quickly evolving into another Taylor Swift episode.
Yeah.
Because we did talk about how, like, basically she is revisiting a load of her older albums and re-recording them for various reasons. And that's then Anna was talking about this whole thing about that's how like it's impacting her newer stuff because she's like really reflecting on the feelings she had back then. It's a whole thing. We won't get into it again. Listen to the last episode if you want.
Some good plugs there for the last episode.
Cross promotion. How are you guys?
I actually had a pretty rough weekend.
Oh, no.
It turns out I've got COVID.
Oh no!
Yeah.
This late in the game.
No, well, the thing is, I've had it before. I had it at like New Year's, not last year, but the year before. And it was really sad. And I was just inside by myself for New Year's. But I didn't have any symptoms, which I, at the time, said was almost worse because it felt like it was pointless.
Yeah.
And this time round, oh my God, it's hit me like a truck. I thought I was going to end up like in hospital or dead at one point. I was genuinely feeling horrific. And apparently it's massively like on the rise again, but no one really talks about it anymore. So sorry for bringing that back up.
Just when we thought we were out.
Yeah.
Pulling us back in. I mean, you sound okay now. You sound like you're feeling brighter.
Yeah, it was really weird. It like hit me really hard for like one night. And then like the morning after, and then like as that day went on, I got a bit better. I think that was Saturday. And then yesterday I was I was okay, and then today it just feels like I've got a cold.
I think that's that vaccine kick in, right? Is that like rather than feeling like death for a week, you feel like death for a couple of days, and then your body goes, "Oh, I remember this," and like kind of into action a little bit. And
I was thinking, I was literally like, oh, if I hadn't had the vaccines, this could have really been quite
really
bad.
rocked you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird that you had no symptoms the first time though.
Yeah, literally nothing. Like,
this is such a weird disease.
Yeah, it's interesting, but also like I wish it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, do you think you got it from? Because I know you've just got back from France. Do you think you got it from your holidays?
I think the York super spreader gave me it.
Oh, right.
And
okay.
I think she also gave me it the last time around New Year's.
Yeah, that would track. I think it's probably responsible for a lot of people at New Year's getting it as well. But we
well, that's unfortunate for that person. That is.
But yeah, no, I think we got it off each other. But it seems like I got it later. So
how was your trip to France?
It very mixed feelings. On the whole, it was really good. Carcassonne, oh my god! Like I was expecting a big castle. It was a bigger castle than I expected.
Oh,
there's like a whole town inside the castle. Like you can go for a meal in a restaurant. There's like a market, like square thing. There's shops. There's like a hotel. There's everything in there. People driving cars, but it's not like York in the sense of it being like an inside a castle. It is like all of it feels like, oh, I'm in a castle. So that was good. Then Marseille was it was a rough ride. I think it was only sort of on the last evening that we were there that we realized, like, as we were walking back to the hotel, we were like, I'm actually a little bit scared. Like, this is really rough. There were like bin bags all over the streets, like mattresses with like blood and other stains on them. Like just there were rats running around. There were homeless people everywhere, which was really sad. And yeah, it was just not what I was expecting at all. But then we went to Nice to sort of finish off, and Nice was very lovely. So
okay. Nice was the palate cleanser that you needed after.
Yeah, absolutely. And the old town was like really, really magnificent. There was really good food there. Although it made us laugh. We went for seafood, and we got like oysters, prawns, like, you know, the classic French sort of seafood thing. It had like snails, the whole works.
Everything slimy and shelly.
Yeah, and we were like, oh, it's a bit of fine dining. And we had it, and we were there like, oh, this feels so fancy. Like, this is so good. Like, we love this. And then it wasn't until we got back to the UK, like the next day, and we were talking about it, and we were like, you know what? Thinking about that seafood, I feel a bit ill. And then we were like, I'm really glad we did it though. And then we were like, yeah, it was really nice, but it wasn't really that nice. And then we were just like, you know what? I wouldn't be in a rush to do it again. So I don't know. It was a weird experience, but it's like.
I love that in the moment it was delicious, but in retrospect it was gross.
It was weird. Like. And both of us sort of had the realization on the same time scale. It was so bizarre.
I don't know, Ronan, have you ever been to like Nice and Marseille, that like area of France?
I've never done any of southern France really. I went to sort of Normandy a few times when I was younger, and I feel like one of those times we went a bit more like central. I remember, I mean, I'd have been really like it. It's one of those things I don't even know whether I remember that. Like, I think I remember that, but like it'd be.
Yeah. Was it like childhood holidays, France?
Yeah. We went
a
few times, like in spring, a few years.
Under the tunnel.
Spring and maybe summer. Yeah, a mixture. We went by ferry and tunnel.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to sort of scrape the memories here, but like it's normally I remember most, and I'm pretty sure we've maybe been. Elsewhere, but definitely never southern France. I'd really like to. Just a lot of the Mediterranean, really. Like, I feel like maybe got slowly getting more familiar with it, but like there's still a lot that I need to do.
Need to go before it all gets blasted by the sun.
Yeah,
it is into the new Sahara Desert.
I mean, Italy is wild.
Saying that we're going to be the new Mediterranean in terms of climate, right? That's why there's all the kind of all the vineyards and sort of wine from southern England is now like. Some of the really sought after wine because it's what the Mediterranean climate used to be.
I feel like even if we become the new Med, we're still gonna have like the shitty English unpredictability of it. Like it's not gonna be like nice like Spain and France were in the heyday. It's gonna be like
it's an island, isn't it?
It's like there's gonna be people like a not even great, but like just grandkids gonna be there like, oh, is this what it used to be like in Italy before the horrible times happened? And you're like, no, not really. It was a lot nicer than it was a lot nicer than this. We just have like one day of sun, and then it's just still miserable for a week afterwards. Like, yeah, we still live on a shitty rock island out in the middle of the sea.
How was your trip, Louis? Was that really warm as well?
Yeah, it was rainy for the first couple of days, and then it was like nice and warm. But it wasn't like deadly warm like it's been elsewhere. I think we caught it like at a pretty decent time. I think towards the end of the week it was creeping into those 30, like 31, 32. For any American listeners, I'm afraid I don't know what that is.
I think it's 90s.
All right, 90s.
Yeah, how are you converting that? Like, I've never understood the way that they convert it.
I've never understood the conversion.
There is like a simple one you can do, but I can't remember what it is. I just have a vague memory of like a rough scale, and I know that like I'm pretty sure 30s is like 90s or maybe like low 100s.
I might get a quick. Not that I'm not believing you. I just want to.
Useful to know the trick.
Not fact check, but
we can share that one.
You're not far off actually. To be fair, 30 is 86.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What the fuck is this formula? Was this 30 times 9 divided by 5 plus 32?
Yeah, so I guess you take the temperature in degrees, basically double it, and then add 32.
Right. That sounds sort of doable.
Yeah, that's a decent way to get close. Yeah, because then what? You're looking at like 90, 95-ish, something like that, 92.
Yeah, you wouldn't be far away, I guess. But I don't understand why Fahrenheit is a thing, and it upsets me.
Let's if we stoke enough Americans to get angry about it, we might get some comments, and that might be a good engagement. So fuck your stupid temperature system. It's wrong, and the whole world agrees that it's wrong, and you're just wrong. There you go.
I can't remember where it comes from, but I've heard some really like stupid things. I'm not sure if they're true.
Is it?
I heard something about a man and his pond or something.
I thought it was something to do with the boiling point of alcohol. I think it might be based on something like that.
See, does anyone have a straight answer, or do we all have wild stories?
I don't think we should. I think we should just settle with the alternate history answers. So we've got a man with a pond and the boiling pot of alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to actually find a straight answer. So
I found one thing on Britannica. Apparently, a German physicist called Daniel Fahrenheit took the zero of his scale of temperature as the point at which an equal ice and salt mixture freezes. I think. I'm not really sure. I don't really understand what this is saying, to be honest. I'm not following
it. That's as rogue as a man with a pond or just the alcohol.
So
I'm sure
completely arbitrary.
I'm sure I read the reason behind him doing it was a pond. Yeah, some weird concoction that he's made, I guess. Unless there is like an equal ice salt mixture that's actually found or useful. I don't really know.
I doubt it. Americans following the footsteps of a German scientist. How apt. Oh dear. Ronan, how are you recovered from your weekend of straight birthdays?
Just about. I don't know, I'm feeling older, that's for sure. It was really lovely, but yeah, 3 days of drinking I couldn't just do without. I was at another birthday this weekend, and it just, you know what, it all just adds up. And yeah. I guess we're not that old, really, are we? But
I think you have it unfortunately timed, because the fact that it's your birthday next to these other ones that you do attend means, as you say, you do age, you do like physically age, but you also have this mental aging of just being exhausted for those
hangovers as well.
Yeah, the hangovers must be getting worse.
Exactly. I think I've psyched myself out thinking, oh no, this is all happening because I'm old, but it is actually just because it's excessive drinking. It's I think that was the trick.
Did you say you were at another one this weekend, just gone as well?
Yeah. There's a lot of birthdays around this time of year. Like, I think I knew 6 people with birthdays on that weekend alone. There's a guy that I email once a month at work, and it's just to get a report from him, like a donation report. He doesn't work at our organisation, but we'll occasionally just exchange the odd nicety. And he was like, "Oh yeah, it was my birthday over the weekend." Exactly the same weekend. Just everybody seems to be born in those few days from like the sort of 7th to the 10th, I guess. Like,
I think it's you though. You attract these people because you and Angus are the only people I know with birthdays around then. So I only know 2 people with birthdays around then. So you're clearly like drawing these people together.
I don't know. Maybe
people of a similar birthday seem to
drawn together.
congregate.
You know what? It would make sense because 2 of the people were like a couple who both have birthdays within a matter of days of each other. So maybe there is something in that. Who knows?
Well, as in dating each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh God.
Surely that just gets a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
I guess it's just like instant repaying of the birthday.
Yeah, I
present.
suppose.
But man, you'd have no time. Like, what if the other part, like the person who goes first, gets you a really nice, thoughtful gift, and you go, "Fuck, I've not got them a really nice, thoughtful gift. I just thought we were doing chocolate bars this year," and you don't have any time to then get the thing.
If it's a few months apart,
the chocolate bar the next day.
if it's a few months apart, you can just base it off what the last person did.
Yeah, you can adjust.
And then, you can, like, oh, this is a reasonable birthday.
I mean, I feel like you guys are thinking about presents in a very, very exchange-based manner.
It's not that it's an exchange-based thing, but I do feel like sometimes you got to be like, well, where's the bar being set?
Yeah, you got to mirror.
You gotta mirror
it to some extent, I suppose.
You don't want to completely hit a different level and then be like, oh, I feel like one of us feels like an asshole.
And that's the thing, you don't want to underperform, but you also don't want to overperform. You don't want to like go too much, and they're like, oh Jesus Christ, that was a bit full on. You've got to match the expectations. If they're only getting you something small and then you get them something big, they're gonna feel bad. You don't want to make them feel bad. You might have really enjoyed that little thing, but it's
reasonable. Yeah.
I feel like you don't think about presents this much.
I feel like, I mean, I get the logic, but I think I just end up getting a present. just get what seems right.
That's a much healthier mindset to be in, to be fair.
It's a lot more calm by the sounds of it.
I mean, admittedly, when it actually comes to present buying, I don't. This stress does not occur. I just feel like if you had your partner's birthday, the next day to yours, it would be like a Mexican standoff.
I think that's the best way to describe it. Maybe it works out really well, and maybe they actually love it because it's like one weekend of the year they get it out of the way, and then it's like,
yeah, maybe it's just a big celebration together. Why can't they just have the celebration on the same day and save you an extra hangover, Ronan?
That would be quite cool because I guess as well they could then hype each other up for it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Do they listen to this podcast, Ronan?
I don't know whether they do yet, but one of them is also a twin.
Don't let them come back to this. We're just talking about them.
One of them's also a twin, which I feel like complicates it even further. There's just too many moving parts. I think
there's a lot of moving parts there.
Out of interest, what weekend was this?
So not the one just gone, but the one before. Although for listeners of this episode, confusingly,
the one before that.
So the weekend of the 8th of July.
Okay.
We had we did map out our birthdays to it, and originally like one of them was supposed to be more chill, but it's just with weather and everything as well. It was all just it wasn't. I think weather meant that realistically it just all had to be drinking based, because it turns out there is not much to. Well, basically just most things are drinking based. But you can sit in a park without drink, but you can't sit in the park in the rain. Is basically the issue.
That's true.
Or not easily.
You could have gone and played a jigsaw in a cozy conservatory.
That does sound quite nice.
There's some very nice cafes that do like board games. And yeah, you could have done that. But I guess it depends how many of you there are as well.
Yeah, big groups of people. That's the thing. That's the excuse.
Flood a cafe and have the biggest game of Monopoly.
I do think that there should be more late night cafe culture here. I think we lack that a lot, and I notice it most in winter. It doesn't matter so much in summer because you can just sit in parks and all that kind of stuff. But you know, a bit like Louis in Newcastle, they had what was the name of that tea rooms? That tea room like stayed open really late, and I just really regret not.
What, the one near the uni?
Yeah, right by the uni. It's going to bug me now.
There was a cool bar in Belgium. I think it was in Ghent. That was sort of similar. They had like loads of retro arcade games and things like that. They had like air hockey, and it was like a late night bar. It was like constructed like the cantina from Star Wars, the Mos Eisley cantina. It was really cool. They had like the little archway booth things, and it was sick. They had like loads of merch that you could buy as well. And yeah, it was really cool. It was like a late night place. I imagine they had board games and stuff, but I can't really remember.
There does need to be more places that have that like late night aesthetic. You're right.
I feel like there's a massive gap in the market for it.
Maybe we should establish one.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. Bring back like not like the modern. I mean, this is going to sound like unnecessarily grumpy, but not like these modern coffee houses. But like, I want to go back to the 1600s. I want to have the old school coffee houses. I want to be talking about the news of the day and Enlightenment thought and all that kind of stuff.
That's really strange that you say that. I was literally in a coffee house in Oxford a few days ago, and apparently it claims to be the longest established coffee house in Europe.
Cool.
And they talk about how when they like founded and all throughout like even the 1800s, they would have like scholars and things from the university come in and just talk about like the issues of the day in the coffee house.
That's exactly.
So it's really weird that you just mentioned
That's exactly what I want more of. That's have chatted about this with Alex before, who we have had on the podcast, so I think is okay to just name drop. And we did say that like there's a sort of franchise capability in something like this, where and you'd have a kind of somehow encourage a culture of you can just rock up by yourself and start conversations with strangers. So it'll attract a lot of crackpots, but that'll be part of the charm. I kind of want to call it the Goat and Bean because I like the idea of it sounding a bit like a pub, but it's a coffee house. Then like the story of like coffee is apparently like it was some kind of goat herder saw his goats basically just acting all proper wired after eating these beans, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try those beans." Then he got really wired, and he was like, "Yeah, these beans are pretty good. I reckon you could, maybe make a hot beverage out of these, and make some money." Anyway,
was that on a previous quiz?
I don't think so, but it could
was
have
it?
been.
I think that was on the Slipknot quiz, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it could have been.
What was it talked about?
That sounds. How would it fit in with Slipknot?
Because the album had a goat on the front.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense.
I bet you got it wrong when we did the quiz as well.
I'm pretty sure I got it wrong. I hate to say it, but I've listened to the Coffee in Our Time, and I feel pretty brushed up on coffee.
But have you listened to it since the Slipknot podcast before? We'll have to go back and clarify whether you got that point or not.
Interesting fact check to throw in there.
This just shows that like it's so easy to forget what you talked about before on things like material. Let me tell you an interesting goat fact that you've definitely never heard before.
I used to try and like remember facts that I'd be told, but that's so interesting. I want to tell other people that and share the knowledge, and then I'd just forget them. And then someone else would tell me, and I'd be like, "Oh wow!" And then I'm like, "Did I know that before?"
I definitely have mates who just tell me facts, and I'm like, "I told you that." Like that came from me. Oh dear, it's all quite Substellar. I don't know if that worked.
I've got questions.
I appreciate the effort.
Rewind the conversation way back for a moment.
Oh come on, mate! I just did the fucking.
Oh no! Sorry. Yes, Stella. I didn't.
And it was such a stellar performance.
Didn't even clock.
That was a Substellar performance, Ronan. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. In which case,
go on. I'm going to allow you to rewind it back because I'm just curious what you wanted to say.
Cut this part out. I'm creating lots of work for you, but you can cut this part out and then place it neatly. Neatly after when we're talking about this, but, or just leave this out. This is just a general general question. But
You're giving me a lot of editing notes
God, I
this
know,
time
sorry.
around. Cut this, leave this in.
I think he wants your job, Louis.
Oh, I really don't envy it. Oh no, just a quick one. I swear Marseille was also hit by all the riots and that, basically, and I was just wondering if you saw any sign of commotion.
So I didn't see anything relating to the riots. We did see a man who appeared to have been stabbed in the neck.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, it wasn't very nice. But I don't think it was relating to any riots. He was just like on the dock. I don't know. I get the impression that that's sort of maybe some of the goings on in Marseille anyway.
Jeez, yeah, a lot of just general social upheaval. Then I guess.
I think he was okay just to ease your mind a little bit, because he was like still sat up and like he looked upset, but he didn't look like he was about to die, and there was an ambulance that like was coming by then. I think he was upset at the fact someone had done it. But,
lad.
Yeah,
Be a bit miffed, wouldn't you?
He's like, oh bloody hell,
Bloody typical of you, then. Yeah. I just can't believe you do this.
What you done that for?
Funny. No, he wasn't a pleased man, but who would be? Yeah. Other than that, though, he seemed okay.
I know the other rioting bits.
Yeah, we didn't see any other rioting. We didn't know if the rubbish was something to do with it, but I was like, I don't really know what bin bags and mattresses have to do with it. Like, yeah. So I think by the time we got there, the riots had maybe all passed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not certain that they did reach Marseille either. I just know that they still.
I'm pretty sure I saw some news that they did.
Yeah, I thought I saw a mention of it. I know, obviously, they spread all over the country, so I wasn't sure whether maybe there was some kind of evidence of it. But it's just interesting just going to France so soon after all of that.
Yeah, we did book it before all of the riots, and we were like, oh, it's in Paris, we'll be fine. We're only going to like the south coast, and then it was like, oh, it's hit Lyon, and we were like, we're going to go there, but we're not.
Very impassioned name.
Yeah, I know. It was our biggest mistake was forgetting how much they just love to riot. Yeah, then a few days before we were going, they were like, oh yeah, Marseille's rioting, and we were like, oh god. But yeah, no, luckily we didn't see anything.
All good in the end. Substellar then?
Yeah, sorry, that's
a much
that's smooth transition.
How about that Substellar?
More of something else entirely.
Cal, would you like to give us a little bit of a brief introduction to your album pick?
Yes. So Lemaitre have been my favourite artist for probably about 6 years, maybe a little longer. So the first song I heard by them is also their most popular. It's called Closer. And I think you may recognise it if you listen to it. I don't know if either of you have.
I think most people would know Closer.
Yeah.
It feels like, I think it was like everywhere for a time.
Yeah.
It was like on loads of adverts and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, it was quite like, it's the sort of thing where like even if you've not gone out of your way to listen to it yourself, you'll have heard it in like passing. And that's sort of what made me first ever find them. And yeah, for the last sort of until Substellar, like the last 6 years, however long that I was listening to them, they had not released an album. They released EPs and stuff, but yeah, never an album. And when they announced that they were going to, I was like, oh my God, I wonder what that would look like for them. Like whether it will be sort of, because the thing that they've always done in the past is they'll vary up their music quite a lot and do different styles and different things with it, which you might have got from the album. But yeah, I was like, oh, are they going to do like a consistent album? Like are all of the songs going to be like quite similar, or is it going to be very different? And yeah, I was quite pleased when it was all a nice big variation. So yeah, I thought there was no finer album to pick. Although that being said, I did have a second contender, but Substellar was the only choice really.
What was the out of interest? What was the other contender?
There was also an album by Avicii, which I thought would have been interesting.
That's interesting. Is Avicii also up there in your top artists? Was that why it was like a close call?
So I think he's got like a lot of songs that I really like, but I think it's in Stories that I was going to pick, but yeah, he's got like some really interesting songs that never really caught on very much, like compared to like the big songs like The Nights or something like that, or Waiting for Love. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about some of those as well. If anyone gets a chance, recommend listening to Can't Catch Me. Great song.
The bonus recommendation.
But yeah, anyway, I decided in the end that there was no other album that I could really pick but Substellar.
So they've been your favorite artist for 6 years, but they've only just released Substellar, 2021? So it's only been out. So for the longest time you've been following them and enjoying them, they've just been doing like singles and like smaller projects and stuff.
I mean, some of the EPs had quite a lot of songs in, to be fair, but they never called it an album. But I think the thing that for me was that there's a distinction between an album and an EP where maybe they would stick to a uniform style, or maybe they would do things quite differently to where they'd done things in an EP before.
Yeah, because often with an EP, it's just like a collection of like usually it's just like, oh, here's a bunch of singles, isn't it? And there's like, oh, let's put it all together and release it as one kind of extended play, versus an album which tends to have kind of more of like a vision behind it.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
And I think as an artist, I mean, I'm not sure quite what Kettle and Ulrich think or like feel themselves on this, but I feel like I get the impression that they like to try different styles and they like to mix things up. So I feel like as an album, the sort of very nature of its style is to be a variety of different things.
Is that what kind of draws you to them then, like the experimental nature of it?
Yeah, I think in part, but I think there's still like an underlying Lemaitre sound that is very much them. And I think that in any of their songs you can hear that. I feel like, I don't know, they've done some pretty different stuff, but you can still hear their like underlying sound. And I'm not a very musically gifted person, so I don't really know what that means. Like I don't know what about the sound makes it a them sound, but I can like I feel like you can hear it when you listen to their music. And yeah, it feels like it comes throughout all of their tracks.
Out of interest, because like usually it'd be like, why did you pick this album over like one of their other ones? But they don't have any other ones. So obviously, I think your options are a bit limited. But what if you had the flexibility to, you know, pick one of their other projects? Would you, or do you think this album is the kind of the best representation of them?
I think they have some other good projects as well. I think I probably still would have picked this, but I think it would have been interesting to talk about, I don't know, one of their other EPs, like Chapter 1 or something like that. It's sort of more from like the early days, I guess. They do also have some stuff like from when they were like from a long time ago, like before even I started listening to them, which I now really love. I don't know, it's very different to what they release now. So in, I think, Relativity 1, they've got a thing about like the making of a coffee table. Okay. And they've got a great song called Skeptics, which is like just an absolute banger. But very electro. And then, yeah, like in Relativity 2, I think it is, they've got a song about Kim Jong-un, and it's like him and sort of rising to power after his father dies. And I don't know, it's interesting because like when you listen to it the first time round, you probably don't really think much about it at all. But like if you know that, oh, they've written it about this, and then you listen to it, you're like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I did not realize they'd been around so long, since 2010 is their first EP.
Yeah.
So, what, 13 years? That's significant. I like as well. I did take the time earlier to have a scroll through their like back catalogue. But when they've got Relativity 1, 2, and 3, and then you get to the Relativity by Night, and it's like club mix. All their songs club mix. I wonder if that's just like adding more bass or anything like that.
Oh no, some of them are like full-on remixes. I know a lot of people who prefer like Skeptics, the club mix, to the the original track. But personally, I prefer the original track. I can see why people like that one. But yeah, they're all actually quite different. And then obviously you've got some actual remixes by other artists of their music.
What's interesting about them going right back to 2010 actually is that I was getting all sorts of flashbacks to that sort of era, like early 2010s to some extent, and I couldn't quite put my finger, maybe early to mid 2010s, I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, because also in some ways there were certain elements that sounded so modern. I kind of got a bit of that feeling that we got Louis, listening to that album. I've forgotten the name of them now. But that rock album where we sort of felt almost like we'd sort of fallen out of a musical loop and something had been developing for all of these years in a way that we weren't clued into. I sort of almost felt a bit like that. So maybe that's just it. It was like hearing stuff that maybe I was more clued into, like in the mid 2010s, say, a sort of like alt pop scene, if that's like a kind of fair description for it. With some of that, also it's interesting you mentioned Avicii, because maybe some of that sort of like that sort of brand of like house and like, you know, almost a bit. Do you remember when like that sort of tropical house thing was kind of a thing for a while?
Yeah.
So a bit of all of those influences, and it's like coming into something, having sort of dipped out of that and not heard it for a while, and hearing how it's developed and sort of changed and sort of progressed. And I find that such an interesting kind of musical experience that I hadn't really thought much about before we sort of had it with that that rock album.
It was Shine Down, Attention.
Yeah, them. So I felt like, I don't know whether you got that at all, Louis, but I felt that a bit with this, and so it makes sense to me that they've been around for that long, because it did almost sound like a sort of developed version of a sound maybe I knew
I think I had this same thing when we did Shine Down, where I was like, oh, as we were recording, I looked back through the catalogue and found that they'd been around for ages. And it's like you say, there's almost that there's these genres of music that you kind of are in tune with at some point when you're younger, I guess, discovering what you're into and also whatever's kind of more in the charts at that point. And then, like, for whatever reason, you don't follow it along. And you get reintroduced to it and you're like, oh, I think as you were just explaining it then, I was like thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I don't think I've listened to this kind of music since Avicii, like since maybe like Levels by Avicii, way back in whenever that was. Yeah, I definitely get that kind of that dipping your toe back into the water a bit, yeah.
I think that was an interesting thing about Avicii and like Kygo and a lot of artists like that, was that I think they sort of defined a genre, or like started to cut out what the genre was for like EDM house, tropical house. And I think that it's like, it was quite a new thing at the time, which is why it like blew up massively. And then I think Kygo is still like pretty big now and still sort of doing his thing. But I think it's interesting to see lots of artists like this sort of emerging, I guess, and becoming popular in the aftermath of that. And like, I guess you get like very divergent genres within those, or subgenres within those genres, if that makes sense. Which, I don't know, I think is an interesting point for me.
No, that makes sense. It is like a sort of its whole own scene. And like, would you think of it as kind of adjacent to that then? Like I was trying to sort of pinpoint exactly sort of where it all fits in. But do you think it does have that sort of relationship then to that sort of movement that Avicii and sort of Kygo sort of started, or is it more, well, you know, parallel to that? You know, like it's its own part of it. So because I did also think it's sort of like that indie synth pop kind of movement, which I feel there was a lot of, and again that I feel like I was a lot more clued into for a while. So I was getting all sorts of like sort of nostalgic flashbacks almost. Do you have a sense of where you'd place it?
I feel like it maybe develops alongside a lot of these other artists, that like they maybe developed their sort of musical style alongside them as well. I don't know how much they were inspired by these other artists or like the music of the time. I imagine it would be hard not to be. I think, you know, you're hearing a lot of great sounds coming out of a lot of very good artists, and it's probably going to influence your direction a little bit, like no matter what you do. But I do think, I don't know, I guess one big distinction is while Lemaitre have been around for a long time and been maturing their own sound for a long time, I guess these other artists that blew up before they did maybe popularized the genre almost. I guess as well, it has been a genre that has been around for a long time.
What genre would you say they are? Like if you had to pinpoint them?
I genuinely would say it depends on the song.
No, I can see that. Yeah.
Like some of it EDM, some of it house. I think they call themselves electro disco dudes or something. So yeah, I don't know. I think it really does depend on the song. I think, like, for example, if you go back to something early like Skeptics, it's undoubtedly like EDM. It's pretty hard. I don't know. I think there's that very electronic sound there. And then like a lot of their other stuff, like, for example, What About You? I'd say is very sort of chill and laid back tempo. I think that definitely has to be something else to me. So yeah, I think it really depends on the song.
100% see what you mean with that sort of experimental instinct that seems to come through, or maybe even a playful instinct, if I could call it that, like a sort of, I want to do a bit with this kind of sound here, and I want to do a bit with that. And actually something that came through for me was that, and they also seem to have an instinct to want to take some of those genre conventions and then make them a little bit wonky. Like, I think one of the places that's most clear is that opening track, that central synth riff. I don't know what they've done to it, but they've sort of almost like slightly flattened the tone of it or something like that. And so it sounds, wonky is the best description I can give for it. So they've taken like which feels like a sort of genre staple, like the big sort of synth riff, and they've just the what they've done with the tone kind of throws it off kilter, which adds to that playful impression that you were kind of describing before. I think
you definitely get a sense that it's like two mates sat in a studio together. I just looked at their Spotify description, and they literally just been like, we're two friends who make cool music together. Our album's out now. Like, that's all they've bothered to put, which is like a nice, short, sweet to the point. And I think with Substellar, you definitely get the sense, like you say, Ronan, that they're probably just like there with their digital audio workstation up. You know, they've got their tracks laid out, and they're just kind of tweaking and playing around with different sounds and stuff that they've probably like enjoyed from their like whole past. I guess you can't call it discography if they don't have albums. I don't know. Like, can you call it? But they're like their back catalogue. I'm sure they've really experienced to this point, so they clearly have like a whole bunch of sounds and knowledge to draw from. And I think, like you say, Ronan, with this album, you feel like you get a sense that they're just kind of still got that kind of experimental fun spirit kind of going through it, and just throwing little motifs and stuff around and seeing what sticks. I think the Trip Sitter, the opening one with the wonky synth, I think that's definitely the best way to describe it. I think it definitely gives you that sense of like a weird trip almost.
I'm really glad that you guys have sort of brought that up as well, because I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, this is very different for them. Like, even for them, this is very different. And I wasn't sure how I felt about it. And I remember I was in the gym and it came on my phone, and I was like, oh man.
Did it make you wobble?
It was like,
while you were doing
like, oh, this is literally a perfect gym song. I don't know. It just hit really well. And that like wobble, that off sound, and I think that is the best way to describe it. It's just like a bit wonk. I don't know, I grew to really, really like it. And yeah, it's very different.
It's infectious.
It's a really bold song to open your album with as well.
Yeah.
Like, of all the songs, it is definitely the most, like you say, the first time you listen to it, you're like, what is this? And everything else feels quite accessible.
Well, I think that's the trick to it though. And this happens a lot. I've mentioned this before, but this happens a lot throughout the kind of the history of like the last 50 years of pop music, I guess. I'm using pop music in the kind of broadest sense there to include the kind of
umbrella cat.
Anything that's not sort of classical or jazz or whatever. But a lot of the sort of experimental music or the new genres that come through are still using pop song structures, and then they're just doing something that sort of throws that off a bit. Or it depends where you put the emphasis. It could be that they are doing something that throws you off, but underneath it there is a pop song to hook you in. And that is 100% true of Trip Sitter. It's that synth is off kilter, but the melody of that synth is very infectious. The whole structure and melody of the song around it is very infectious. So it's kind of got everything there. It's like a sweet bit of candy that's just got a bit of that sort of sour to it. Like it's.
Yeah.
I think that's what threw me off even a little bit extra, is the fact that the rest, it's your brain's there trying to realize this song that sounds like it should be a really like radio friendly, like electronic hit. And yet you just can't. And then it's got that wonky synth on top, and it's like your brain's just like, I don't get it.
There's a later track as well called "OK Computer." I don't know if you remember.
Yes,
it does something a little bit similar. I think that also feels like a little bit wonky. Or like it's sort of like got a bounce to it, but like
Or it's got a real bounce. That's
it
it.
still has it does have quite the bounce, but it's also got like I don't know. To me, its sound again is a little bit like funky or wonky.
Well, I think the vocal on that track adds to that. Like the vocal gives it that slightly, because it's the computerized voice, which makes it sound. I was going to say futuristic, but it's actually almost more like a sort of pseudo-futuristic, like a kind of retro-futuristic, I suppose. It's imitating what we once thought the future would sound like.
It sounds what people in the 2000s thought the future was going to sound like.
Which I love. I love anything that plays on past notions of the future. I think it's I don't know. There's something vital in kind of like just reminding us. I want to say it's reminding ourselves of our own stupidity, or of our own kind of like
overconfidence in like our
sort of
predict.
Maybe over hoping for the future, over fearing the future, whatever it might be. But anything that plays off past notions of the future that haven't come to be is just interesting.
Yeah, I think just to circle back as well to something you said about, I think Louis said about them being like two dudes who make music, two friends or whatever. I just wanted to pick up on that as well, because I remember looking at like some of their Instagram stories and stuff. They literally do just post them jamming out and trying new things. And I think they often invite other artists to come and do that with them, which is why you see quite a lot of guest appearances on the album. And I think that's really sweet as well. Like they befriend other artists and stuff, and
collaborative kind of
artistic collaborative jam session
for the joy of making music almost over.
Like they'll post videos like they'll be out in like I don't know the Norwegian fjords or something on a boat, and they'll just be jamming with some.
Are they from
the
Norway?
Artists from their album. So they're from Norway, but they live in California. Where they also jam quite a lot.
Do you think that's one of those things where like really they'd prefer to be back in Norway, but like in order to be successful you have to live in California? Or do you think they're actually like loving it?
I don't know, because I think a lot of their fans are in Norway. I get the impression that like they have a strong fan base in Norway, and I think like a lot of their posts are like, for example, they'll be on top Norwegian tracks on Spotify or something, or like, you know, they'll get a lot of recognition by Norwegian press, but maybe not necessarily elsewhere.
In fairness, I feel like I can't think of, I'm going to show myself up here, but I can't think of many other Norwegian artists who are big on the global stage.
I was actually going to say the opposite. Actually, maybe not specifically for Norway, but Scandinavia has a weird phenomenon of churning out.
Scandinavia is different,
some of the
Finland and Sweden produce.
Finland and Sweden,
somehow.
but like Norway.
Oh yeah, I couldn't necessarily say Norway for certain. I mean, it's particularly Sweden. I think actually it is particularly Sweden. But I kind of
guys, we've forgotten about Donkey Boy. Obviously, the famous Norwegian artist Donkey Boy.
I mean, you could easily have made that up, and I would know no different. I kind of thought that they fit broadly into that kind of Scandinavian pop sensibility. That seems to be some kind of mad phenomenon.
I was going to say as well, they used to have, so a lot of their old music videos were shot by a guy called Johannes, who sadly passed away a few years ago, and they released a song about him called Joe. I think the song's about him anyway, I'm pretty sure. And it's a really good song, but also I think it, again, like, goes to show how personable and like maybe just down to earth they are. Like, I don't know, they were jamming, they got on really well with Johannes, who produced their music videos, and like it feels like even on that level they were very involved and had a close relationship. It feels like just generally they're very passionate about what they do. And some of the early music videos are very, very good.
I always, whenever we talk about this stuff, I always like think, oh, I need to watch more music videos. I don't watch any music videos. Like I listen to songs and I never bother to. And there's some fantastic, like, artful music videos out there.
Definitely. I think it's a sad thing that it used to be more common, but I feel like now with Spotify and things like that, you don't really have the means to unless you go onto YouTube. I never get in from work though and sit down and go, you know what, tonight I'm just going to crank out some music videos.
I would suspect, I mean, because you'd think that we should be in a golden era of YouTube music videos with, you know, access to the internet and all that kind of stuff. But you're probably right that we're not currently, but there's almost certainly a cyclical element to that. So I guess YouTube, I keep wanting to call them YouTube videos, but music videos, like probably first blew up in like the 80s, I guess. Was it with the invention of video, or I'm not certain.
It's got to be, yeah, like kind of the era of like Top of the Pops
And
that, right?
cheap filming
Yeah.
opportunities. I think Top of the Pops, cheap to film videos because like you had video available rather than film. Then MTV would have been the next kind of boom, I'm guessing.
I think it was like your period of time where like more people were suddenly watching TV than listening to the radio, and you're like, well, how do we put our song in front of people who aren't listening to the radio anymore? Make a music video, get it on Top of the Pops, and then like MTV and stuff like that, like you say. And then when you get this kind of, it feels like it's like you get the medium shifts. So radio back in the day, the way to get big and famous was get it on the radio. Then the majority of the audience, some people still listen to the radio, but the majority of the audience start watching TV. So then you get things on from the TV. And then like when we were growing up, it was like we were all watching stuff on YouTube, and like I can't remember what the website was called, but there was like a chart. Like I remember being in like year 8 in like the IT room, like doing ICT, but instead of doing the actual work, watching like the top 20 music videos or whatever. And it was always like Coldplay and Black Eyed Peas and shit back in the day. And you'd watch it there and you watch on YouTube. But now I feel like we've moved away again. And the way to get your songs in front of people's ears is like do a TikTok, but it can only be like 30 seconds long so they don't lose attention span. So you just have like a snippet of a song and then you hope that they go and find you on Spotify or something afterwards. I don't know if like the day of like I nearly called them YouTube videos as well, music videos. I feel like obviously they're still made and they're very highly produced, some of them, and I'm sure they get lots of views, but like I think now we're in an era where you have to seek out a music video, whereas we kind of grew up in the era of like the music videos were the way to discover the music, whereas now it's like first you find the music, then you go and watch the music video.
Yeah, I definitely think you're onto something there as well. I think it is very much a case of people will not go out of their way to find something if they don't care that much about it. And if it's not put right in front of them, then they're probably not going to see the music video. I think maybe for some big artists and stuff where they've got really high production, or maybe people who listen to their music on YouTube anyway, maybe they just see the music videos.
There's probably a strange sect of people who listen to YouTube music. And
I feel like with the like how many adverts you get on YouTube now, I feel like that must be a shrinking section of people.
Unless they've like roped it in with like the premium stuff.
Maybe, to be fair,
if anyone who listens, this is like a audience engagement. If anyone who listens uses YouTube Music, let us know.
I actually had a mate. I had a mate who did. Somebody I met from my master's course predominantly listened through YouTube, and he did have premium. I think part of the appeal is why I've got so into using YouTube actually that I've had to disable it on my phone because it's becoming one of those apps that is like really easy just to open. Part of the appeal from
mate, that's me. That's me.
Part of the appeal from the music point of view is I think that the YouTube algorithm is better than Spotify's for predicting what you're gonna like. And added to that, there's all sorts of appeals, including you're more likely to get music that might not be available at all on Spotify, whether that be small kind of amateur sort of stuff, lost, forgotten classics, whatever it might be. I think it also imitates a little bit
The Chronic by Dr. Dre.
It imitates a little bit as well that feeling of walking through a record store and flicking through and doing what they always tell you not to do, but which is actually at the end of the day just a brilliant feeling, which is picking something based on its cover, which actively morphs your experience of it. And I've definitely had that a few times when some random albums have been recommended by YouTube, and I pick on them just because they have a cool looking album cover, and suddenly you've discovered something that you just really wouldn't have discovered otherwise. I used to think the Spotify algorithm was pretty good, and I think maybe you can train it to be good. I think maybe that's part of it, but
I kind of think the Spotify one, it's too pandering. It gives you more of what it thinks you want.
yeah, I
and
agree.
I want new things, so it's not very good at serving me. It just serves me more of the same.
I feel like they change it as well. I feel like it keeps changing
It's getting
slightly.
worse.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. Yeah, it feels like it is. I don't know why or how they're getting worse. I don't know. Whatever they're doing, I feel like they need to stop. Maybe they're not doing anything, and I'm just imagining it's getting worse and getting more and more annoyed. But
Ronan, when you were talking about how like you could pick, you'd pick an album on YouTube based off its cover art. I think this album and a lot of their like not discography, back catalog is definitely the kind of stuff that people could pick out. I think their cover art is really cool. I don't know if do you know if they do the art, Cal, or if they've got like a dedicated artist?
I think they've got a dedicated artist. I'm pretty sure I've seen them link to the artist before, and I'm also pretty sure they've based it off a style by an artist of old. But I don't know who the artist of old is.
It's a very intriguing art style. Very cool. It's very much suits the aesthetic of the album as well, I think. Like, I think if you clicked on this album, you would you hear what you see. Not
yeah, it fits.
Sense.
It works.
Yeah, it fits the energy.
I think I've been a fan of it for a while, but even that like symbol, the like origami sort of. If you go back to Relativity or the early stuff like that they've had, I really like that. Even just that really simple design. I've got it on a t-shirt.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Simple, minimalist, but again, I think it fits their stuff.
Earlier, you mentioned that you were listening to Trip Sitter at the gym. Is this album is this a gym album for you, or is this an everywhere album? Is it like?
To be honest, when it came out, this is quite bad. I remember, when Spotify does you were in the top whatever percent of artists.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I listened to this album everywhere, constantly, for a very long time. And I think I ended up in like the top 0.001%.
Bloody hell.
Ridiculous. And looking at their monthly listeners, I'm pretty sure I was like the top 6 people.
So when you see people posting, well, I was in the top 2% of this artist list, you're like, pathetic.
The other thing was that was like a lockdown year. I think it came out in 21, like you said, or at least the original album did, not the deluxe. And I think that was a lockdown year, and I was just like, I listened to a crazy amount of music that year because I was just inside, like, cranking it out. I think that probably shifted me upwards as well. Yeah, it's quite funny.
I think you should wear that one proudly. I think that's it's something to aspire to. I've never had anything where it's getting into the naught. Like I've had 0 points. I've not had 0.0s of any kind. I don't think.
It was really quite the achievement, but I still have no idea like what that actually really equates to be honest. But it just in my mind means I probably listen to them
fan.
A lot. Maybe
you deserve to go backstage with them, and I mean, it's a testament to the album in a way that like you listen to it that much and you didn't tire of it that much. Like you can still go back and enjoy it.
That's the thing. I found like I remember at one point I'd like listened to a lot of their music. I have like a playlist that was originally just like all of the songs that I really, really loved by them.
Yeah.
And it's just grown and grown. And I remember I got to a point where they'd released a few singles that were going to be on this album, but they hadn't released the album. And I was just too eager to listen to more from them. So I just went back and started listening to loads of their very early stuff on repeat for a very long time. And I'd heard it before, but I hadn't like properly just binged it before.
Yeah.
And that felt really good, to be honest. It felt like listening to new music. So yeah, I think that's why, because they've got so many songs and I just like pretty much all of it, it's an easy artist to just listen to a lot of. You
could just put them on by themselves and feel like you've got a playlist worth of material to go off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think to go back to this album in particular, I think there were a lot of really interesting things about each of the songs. I think they're all quite different to each other, but I think they're also like some of them fall into certain categories, I guess. And I think some of them tried sort of similar to how Trip Sitter tried new things. I think some of the other songs tried new things. Personally, I think it really worked. So an example, and there's a story behind it as well, Hit or Miss. I don't know if you remember, but it's the one that sort of got like, I would describe it almost like lo-fi.
sort of like a
undertones.
slower, almost like as in lo-fi hip hop almost. Are you thinking?
Yeah, like I think like if you removed the vocal track from it, I feel like it would be not far off lo-fi. But I remember they did an Instagram poll where they asked people for genres that they should try, just essentially try out. And there was some really cool stuff that people put on there. And I recommended or requested lo-fi. And I remember they put out a sample that is now actually, it is either very similar to or like a tiny bit of.
Oh, no way.
And I don't know whether they had already had it in production and were like, oh, actually, we'll just throw out.
That's insane.
I have no idea, but I was like, I remember when it came out and I was like, I'm sure I recognize this. And I went back and I'd like recorded it from Instagram to show my friend who's another big fan as well. And he was like, oh my God. He was like, that's unbelievable. But I'm still not sure if they might have already had it in production, and I just
either way. Like, did you get likes on your comment? Is it like something that they were like or likely to have seen?
No. So it was like it was like on a story, so you just type into them and.
Like I was
out the loop. Man. Oh no, this is bringing back the anxiety to the beginning of the episode.
Essentially, you just message them your response, and then they like post the story, like a story, which would be the sample of the track, and it would have like your response in a box underneath, like what their original post was.
That is awesome though. I feel like you can definitely, you can definitely claim that. That is the greatest degree of influence I've heard about anybody I know having on an album.
I was about to say, I think you get the prize. I don't think any of the guests can claim to have had a recognition from the artist or a suggestion.
The other thing I'm now wondering, and I think it would be really cool if they did, is I can't remember what other people requested, but there were a lot of other people that requested styles, and they like posted a lot of other stuff as well that was already cool. And I'm now like, are there any other songs on the album, or are there songs like in future work that maybe other people like have suggested and have like gone away and actually produced something with it because they like the sound and rolled with it? So I'm not sure, but I think that'd be really cool. But unfortunately, I don't have all of the stories.
I imagine there's like one or two that like somebody suggested. They were like, "That's a great idea." They went away and worked on it, posted a snip of it and then came back to it and were like, "I'm not really feeling it." Delete. Oh, my suggestion. No.
I think that has to make it one of my favorites on the album. I feel like that's a tough thing to say because I feel like I've got a lot of favorites on the album.
That's a good. I like that. When we're like asking people, "Oh, do you like have a personal story with any of the songs?" And it's like, yeah, I told them to make it.
It's incredible. What it's worth, I don't know whether we're at that stage of favorites or if I'm jumping ahead here, but I'm also just going to say that was one of my favorites. That was one of the ones I was going to pick out. It's a great tune, and I feel like that embodies kind of what you were saying about them doing something a bit different, and now I know why. It was all you.
You're the mastermind.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Maybe they're masterminding by reaching out to people, and
it is a really smart way of doing it. Yeah, it's a really kind of, I mean, it's good from a kind of, just as a fan community point of view. Like it's just it's a nice thing to do, but it is also it sounds like a really creatively stimulating thing to do as well. To sort of ask people to push you outside of your comfort zone. Because I think if you're just left with your sense of what you can do or what you like, then you're probably just going to like be inherently limited by that, even if you're actively trying to think outside the box. I mean, whether it be that you think that you're not capable of certain things, or maybe that you have just certain tastes where you're like, oh, this doesn't seem worth it. That's not very us. But if you're getting your fans, people who already like your music, and hopefully people who you sort of respect, to suggest something, it's gonna open up new possibilities for you. I just think it's really quite a nice way to use that kind of fandom community.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to see or find out if that has happened. I mean, with any other of the recommendations as well. But yeah, I'm really glad they did it.
Is there any other tracks that you've got stories or associations with Cal, or anything else that you want to tell us about the artist?
There's some that I would say, to me, give me a very strong like feeling of their like classic sound. And like obviously when they released Tripsitter, it was a very different sort of sound, and it was a very new thing, and a lot of the songs are that way. And I think some of them, in contrast to that, are very classic them, and that sort of felt really nice to me that they'd done some new things, but then also still grounded themselves in what I know and love. So to just shout a couple of those out, I think Reflection is one of my favorite songs again on the album. It felt like a perfect blend of their old style with a sort of a new sort of flavor, I guess. And I really love that. And then I'd say as well, Chameleon felt like some of their really early stuff.
Chameleon felt like the biggest throwback for me as well, listening to it. That's one that, like when Ronan mentioned earlier, like it feels like we were dipping our toes into a pool that we'd not like experienced for a long time. Chameleon was definitely that kind of nostalgia feeling. Like this, this takes me back.
You know what it reminded me of specifically? I think it sounds a tiny bit like Fireflies. Do you remember that tune? Like I Can't Believe My Eyes. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When 10,000
Exactly that
fireflies.
one. It's whatever those twiddly instruments are was very similar in tone to the Fireflies.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, the twiddly instruments, the twiddly bits. I think for me, a big part of that sound that triggers that kind of. I don't know if it is it like a staple of the genre. Cal, you might be able to give us some insight on this. Is the specific kind of female vocals that they use in a lot of the tracks. Like they've got some featured artists on here, but even the featured artists are that kind of vocal sound, and you get it on the other tracks like Chameleon that isn't featured artists. I'm not sure where I assume it's samples and stuff, but like there's a very specific kind of voice. I don't even know how you describe it because it's not like high pitched, but it's like it feels like it's the same kind of voice that you get in all electronic music for the most part.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that is definitely a genre, not a trope, but like a thing that they do.
Yeah,
I feel like you see it in a lot of artists in that genre.
I've always kind of wondered if it's just like there's just this one like vocal plugin.
I think maybe a part of it might be that a lot of the electronic tracks have maybe quite a strong sort of bass line, maybe having like a higher sort of
that can
range
sit on top of it.
For your vocalist might work quite well.
That makes sense.
But that being said, I think Ulrich's voice is like generally my favorite of any of the.
Do they both sing on it, or is it just one of them?
So it's only Ulrich that sings.
Out of interest, which one is Ulrich? If we're looking at on their Spotify artist page,
I think you two should guess which one is Ulrich.
Right. Well, the one on the left is Matt Smith, so the one on the right must be Ulrich.
I would have actually said that the one on the left is Ulrich. He looks like an Ulrich to me, but
so Ulrich's the one on the right.
Yes.
Disappointing. You're right, Louis. I should have known it was Matt Smith.
That is Matt Smith, yeah.
Matt Smith.
But yeah, I think that's one thing as well that seems to be repeated a lot in the fan base is they release a lot of songs. I know my friend especially will say it, but they'll release a lot of songs, especially some of their singles with guest vocalists on. And my friend will always be like, I just want Ulrich's voice back.
Oh, that's going to make one of my top picks is What About You is quite controversial then because that's Anna of the North doing most of the vocals on that one.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very different to what they've typically done. I think it's now like it blew up quite a lot. Of all of the songs on the album, I think it's certainly one of the most
I think it's the most
popular.
played, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is again like a perk of doing music that's so different to your other music is like you might start to creep into other genres and like while, I don't know, someone might hate a majority of your music, if you've released something that's really different to anything else you've done before, then they might really like that one song.
And then be drawn in to have a rummage around in the back catalogues.
Slowly pollute them, and then eventually they're some hardcore EDM lover, and they'll be, banging it out in a club in no time.
Should we do top 3 songs each, or was there anything else that either of you wanted to mention about the album?
I had something to ask you guys.
Oh, yeah.
I also wanted to mention one more song, if that's okay.
Of course, yeah.
I'll ask my question. So, Bedroom Superstars, the sound in it feels familiar, and it feels like I've heard it somewhere before. But I just cannot put my finger on where. And I've had someone else say to me that they also feel like they recognise it, but so far I've not found anyone who has. So I thought maybe as two people who've listened to a lot of music in their time, maybe you might have an idea. Maybe, I don't know, does it sample something or?
There is a site that you can check out for sampling, so I'll check that first.
Ronan, you shouldn't have told us about it. You should have just done it secretly. And just be like, oh yeah, it's
took the credit.
Do they tend to do like sample-based stuff, Cal, or does it tend to be like
No, not
original
really.
melodies? Yeah, it didn't
Yeah,
strike me as a sample-heavy album.
yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to tell, though, to be fair, when they kind of slow it.
But it's like quite a simple like little beat. Maybe it's like rings some bells vaguely, but isn't actually a sample of something. But I wasn't sure. It does feel very familiar, and it was weird that someone else had said it.
It could very well be. I mean, Ronan might correct us, but it could very well be. There are certain artists, both like musically and like in other kind of like creative areas, who are incredibly good at like tickling that familiar nostalgia feeling without it being something.
Yeah.
So like there's a YouTube video essayist, however much that make you roll your eyes, but one of the kind of OGs who put a lot of time and effort into their videos, and I don't think they upload much anymore at all, but they were called Captain Christian, and they did a video talking about Frank Ocean, and they were talking about how like there's certain sounds in Frank's, I think it's I think it was in fairness it's in all his albums, but he like really kind of focuses on making a lot of these noises that sound familiar and comforting, and it's by playing around with these kind of soundscapes that are a little bit like, you know, even simple tricks like using this, like the sound of a cassette playing, for some reason tickles that kind of nostalgia, or even in people who didn't grow up with like cassettes and stuff like that. So there's like there are certain like tricks you can almost play on the brain to make it feel familiar.
And that's the whole point of like the lo-fi movement as well. So lo-fi hip hop and lo-fi house, they were also playing off exactly that, like the warm sort of crackle of cassette tapes, or
the warm crackle.
Also that kind of you get a lot of things that use the sort of vinyl sounds for a similar kind of effect. I've just had a listen to some of the song as well, and is it just that central melody that starts from the very beginning you're talking about?
Yes.
Because it kind of reminds me a tiny bit, and I don't know whether this is it, but it's sort of like a little like lullaby melody, and the sound is almost like a little. Do you know those little like singing? I don't know what they even are that babies have. That like there's a little like circular thing with dangly things on it, and it can often play music.
I'm meaning, so it's sort of like, it is at the start, it's like 13 seconds.
Okay,
and it sort
right.
of comes in at like the 13th second.
Let me check that now.
That's the bit
I was going to say, if it was that other bit, that would also fit into everything we were saying about actively, very lightly trying to play upon some kind of like childhood sense of comfort or
lullaby energy.
Yeah, but to be fair, maybe it hooks in. Maybe that gives you that familiar feeling, and then you feel like you recognize the rest.
I'm loving this live dissection of the song. This is new.
So I also know what it sounds like.
It's working there.
It also might not be this, but it sounds a little bit like, and I'm gonna get, you know, the whole vaporwave phenomenon. The classic vaporwave song. I swear it sounds a tiny bit like something from that way, but it might not be. Okay, maybe it's not that.
I'm curious what it reminded you of.
This is what I was thinking of, but I actually don't think it sounds like that. But it's similar sort of like playing off. So maybe I was just thinking about it because of the whole conversation. I'll still put it in the chat, but it doesn't sound like anything like this. But vaporwave was also a whole movement based upon playing on vague, eerie, sort of liminal sort of space of elevator music and on hold music, and walking around shopping malls and all of that sort of stuff, and playing upon like, can you even call it nostalgia? It's probably more like a sense of low-lying existential dread cushioned lightly by music, I suppose.
That's like the Outrun. That's like the Outrun song. For the Outrun game.
I don't know what that game is, but yeah.
There's like, I think it's where like vaporwave and like synthwave and that sort of stuff like originated. So it was like a video game, and that's where the like graphic style comes from of like the sunset. And like the game is where you're a car and you drive and like I think you overtake other cars and you don't crash into them.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
And then it plays that music. And I think that's where it came from. It was like an old arcade game or something.
It doesn't sound the same melody, but it definitely has
Same
a
vibe.
similar. It has that dusty crackle. Both don't sound. I don't know what it is. Like it's not quite the cassette noise or the vinyl noise, but there's like a dusty, like you're watching it through like an old VHS tape or something.
Yeah, it's what it is actually. It's almost like it's ever so slightly distorted. Like old tapes used to go a little bit like
fuzzy,
just ever so slightly, fuzzy and kind of maybe even just slightly flattened, I guess, like blunted almost. Kind of like listening to the music through a slightly sort of opaque window.
So I think that's our theory, right? Is that it's not something you've heard
They're
before,
using those
but
tropes.
we think those tropes are triggering a sense of familiarity. But we might be wrong. If we're wrong, tell us in the comments below. There are comments on Spotify now. You can add comments on Spotify now. It's crazy.
If anyone knows what it's actually from in comments, I will be eternally grateful because it will like tickle that itch.
We'll let you know if anybody ever responds. Or send us an email. More of something else entirely at gmail.com. Or message us on Threads. We've got Threads now, Ronan. I made a Threads for us.
Oh wow.
Strange way to announce it, like late way into an episode, but it was easy to do because we already have an Instagram account, and it was just like, do you want to make a Threads? And I was like, yeah, why not? Just in case it gets big. It won't, but you've got a Threads. Follow us on Threads, follow us on Instagram, email us, leave a comment in the Spotify.
You say that, but like if enough people think, oh, I might as well get it just in case, then it is going to get big. And then at that point, Mark Zuckerberg really does own absolutely everything.
I think it already is doing that as well. It looks like it.
Yeah.
I think they've already crossed like so many records for how quickly they've got users.
I'm sorry. I'm actually gonna throw in another grumpy Ronan rant here. But this is just a perfect. This is a perfect and little microcosm of modern capitalism, where everybody thinks that they have a choice. Like everybody thinks that they can now express their outrage against Elon Musk. And how do they do that? They go by going to his competitor, fucking Mark Zuckerberg. Like how is that like demonstrating anything? Like, I mean, but this is like, it's full of this. Like, I mean, the way in which our moral outrage is used just to sell shit by the other side, who are just as morally outrageous.
Yeah.
It is just remarkable. The same thing happened. I'm still bitter with BP. Back when BP had the oil spill, Shell's profits went up. Shell literally like fund paramilitary groups in Nigeria. Like they're messed up as anything. And the fact that everybody's thinking, oh, at least I'm not going to BP.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anyway.
But Ronan, what should the listeners do? Where should they follow us?
Just
develop your own app.
Overthrow the government, overthrow the overthrow the global capitalist system.
And while you're doing it, wave a little flag that says more of something else entirely, and tell people to listen.
Yeah,
to it.
and pay for us on Patreon.
Not that we have one yet.
Selling our services.
We'll go full.
In the words of Kanye.
Do we want to be using the words of Kanye?
Yeah, because they're just so Kanye. It's something on the lines of creativity is a beautiful tool to overcome the forces of capitalism, and also I can use it to make money.
Oh, that is beautiful. Was there another point that you wanted to bring up, Cal? I think.
Yeah, my final point. I promise it's a short one.
Yeah, sorry. There's a sideline there. I just had to get it out.
I hope this one doesn't enrage Ronan too much. No, I was just going to say Dive and Treehouse bangers. I don't know how those ones are not bigger. If I had to pick like some songs that were bigger off the album, I would probably pick those. Dive especially, I remember in summer, it came out in summer and I was just driving to work, windows down, playing it, and it was such a nice like track in the like warm sun. It was brilliant. I loved it. And I don't understand how everyone else can be missing out.
Is that
on
the
this.
big shout out for the album then? That's the big one you'd go for.
Yeah, it needs more recognition. Come on, guys. Yeah, come on, guys, give it some. But yeah, anyway, that is, I think, without going on for hours and hours and hours, that's probably my final things that I need people to know.
Useful to know. I'm sure there'll be other things after we finish. You'll be like, oh,
Damn it, I
I
didn't mention this.
this.
Almost certainly.
Okay, so tough question now is what are your top 3 that if someone was curious to kind of give the album a dabble but doesn't have the time for whatever reason, what would be your top 3 picks?
For me, Reflection, because it's very classic. Lemaitre also sort of, I think it's an accessible song.
Mm.
I think What About You, because it's very different, and again, like, I feel like it's quite accessible, and I think it's something that hits a different itch to most of the rest of the album. So again, going back to what I said earlier, if you don't like most of it, you might like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the third one's so hard. It could literally be any of them. Oh, you really. I don't want to pick. It's. I feel like I should go for something different. Is the thing. But maybe something like Bedroom Superstars or Dive. That again, it's like I feel like it's quite easy to like, and hopefully from those 3, if they liked at least one of them, they would try the rest of the album.
You'd be tempted to be sucked in. Would they be your personal top 3 as well? Or
Probably, I don't think so. I think I would go for. I think Reflection would be in there. Then maybe Treehouse, and then it's tough. Again, third place could be Tripsitter, it could be Dive, it could be so many of them. I don't like this. You're asking too much, I'm afraid.
Well, Ronan, do you want to pick your top 3?
I've already mentioned Hit or Miss, and we've already talked about that. I just think it's a nice little sort of slow chill out number. And I hadn't really sort of picked up on that sort of lo-fi hip hop kind of element to it, but I can very much see that now you mention it, and maybe that's why I sort of enjoyed it. OK Computer, which we've already talked about, I think that is, of all of the songs on the album, that's the one that makes me want to move the most. And I love the term that you used, bounce. I think like it is bouncy, and I think that sums it up. Also, like, catchy, probably the catchiest of all of them for me, almost to an annoying degree. But really enjoyed that one. And we've talked about Tripsitter, and I do like that sort of wonky synth, but I might go for Bedsty Bounce just to sort of mix that up a bit. It was sort of between those two. I just love that central little riff in that one.
Also very funky, again, sort of like OK Computer, I guess. It's very different, but also very funky and a little bit bouncy, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, very much like a kind of where you can dance to it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do a little bit of a crossover and grab Bedsty Bounce as well, just because again, the little aspect of funkiness to it and the aspect of it, like the danceability of it. I like you say with OK Computer as well. Is that kind of like you can feel yourself start to potentially do an embarrassing dance to it if nobody's watching, kind of energy. I liked What About You as well, because apparently I'm very basic according to Cal's metrics. That's the one that everyone will like. So I really like Anna of the North's vocals on that one as well. And the one that we've just been kind of talking about was with Bedroom Superstars. I was kind of umming and erring about putting that in my top 3 because it was going to be between that and Treehouse. But I think after our little like session of dissecting it a little bit more, I quite like what they're doing with that kind of nostalgia play. Is that a way of phrasing it? But yeah, I think I'm going to put Bedroom Superstars up there as well. Yeah,
I like that we've had quite a diverse range of picks there.
A lot of play on the album, a lot of good songs to pick from.
That means everyone's going to have to listen to lots of different things.
Cal, do you have a quiz for us?
I do, yes.
Ooh,
I'm quite happy with it as well.
Nice. All right, well, in that case, it's time for the quiz. Nothing from Ronan this time.
Oh, you didn't do the.
Did I ruin that by coming in early?
I should have just binged to your dun dun dun. Really, shouldn't I? Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
like
so-
this natural thing came together and then silent.
Okay, so Lemaitre, I called Lemaitre. Whether or not it's after George Lemaitre, I do not know. But I will nonetheless ask, what is George Lemaitre known for?
Oh God.
Ding. Is he a famous poet?
He is not
Oh.
a famous poet.
Fashion or something.
No, George's Lemaitre.
That's
I'm
why I
afraid
said or something.
there's no point for either of you here, really. You're both so far from the mark.
Oh no.
But he's known as the father of the Big Bang theory.
Oh Jesus.
Oh, okay, yeah, I really should.
He was a theoretical physicist,
known that.
mathematician, and astronomer.
Was he a famous mathematician and astrologer? And then I can just edit that bit in and put that earlier. So I don't
You did
embarrass
just say
myself.
astrologer, which is the
Oh no.
the worst part there.
Move on. Next question.
Next question. Okay, one of the songs on the album, as you know, is called Treehouse. How tall is the tallest treehouse?
Wow. In
Ooh.
meters or in feet or
You can do it in either, and I will convert.
okay. I'll let you go first, Ronan. Is this the closest to?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Oh God.
Okay, this is my chance to regain my abilities, but I feel like I should know how tall trees can go in general, and then base it off that.
So it's the height of the actual house.
Including the tree or like just the house?
The house itself in the tree.
So it doesn't include the height off the ground.
I don't believe it does, but in either case, it would be very similar.
Oh.
I think it would make little difference.
So it's a squat tree with a big house.
It is a big house. It's a very big house.
This just feels so difficult. Okay, I'm just gonna explain it. Like, I mean, now with your clues, it just feels even more difficult. Like, is this somebody's like somehow really twisted the definition of a tree house? Like, they've just built a house around a tiny little bonsai tree.
It's a house
or
that has a stump in the front right corner.
Screw it. I'm just gonna say 15 meters.
Okay.
15. Did you say?
15.
15 meters.
Doesn't sound very tall, does it?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna say 20. I'm gonna say 25 meters. It's got to be able to... Oh, I don't know.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
say.
25 meters.
I'm gonna say. I don't know now. I was gonna go so much bigger than that.
Well, you go.
You're not
You go for
including-
your answer.
I'm gonna
Come
bring
on.
it down. I'm gonna bring it down. I'm gonna say like. Well, I'm gonna say like. 180 meters.
Okay. 180 meters. Ronan, what are you going for?
25 meters. Well, we're not
25.
including height off the ground. I'm really... And trees
Okay.
don't go that big, do they?
With your current guesses, either way, the winner would be the same. So Ronan would be the winner.
What?
It was 92 feet, which I think is about 30 meters.
Oh my God.
But it's actually a massive tree house that spans 6 oak trees.
Bloody hell.
Wow,
goes across
okay,
6
that's not a
trees.
cop-out. That isn't a cop-out.
That's a good tree
Um,
house.
The floor of it is more than 3,000 square meters, and apparently it was a 14-year project.
I feel
wow.
like this is a much more practical existing structure than I was visual. Like when the question was framed as the tallest treehouse, I was like, somebody's made a ridiculously tall structure in a tree.
This guy lives in it.
But this guy actually, like, it has a
He lives-
practical
oh.
purpose.
It's his actual house, yeah.
It's sort of a cop-out, though, because he has built a house around a tree in exactly the way that we fit. I mean, what? I did say that it was going to be built around a bonsai tree, which really would have been taking the mick. But this is still, I mean, it's touching the ground for one thing. I think you could reasonably question whether that
Yeah,
constitute.
the treehouse in The Simpsons does not touch the ground, and that's kind of my go-to treehouse.
It does
Yeah,
look
maybe-
cool though. I'll give
Maybe
him
we
that. I'll give him
dispute
that.
his how
Purist.
good his
I think we just
treehouse
build
is.
something bigger in a tree, specifically in a
then-
tree.
Yeah.
See how high we can go.
My day feels better having seen photos of this though. I feel like anybody listening, I recommend looking this up. It feels like a childhood dream of some sort being
It does.
actualized.
It looks weird. That it is actually pretty well supported by the trees. Like looking at some of the pictures in this article, it is actually like clinging to the trees.
Yeah, they are very much interwoven into it.
Yeah.
That is pretty sick.
Anyway, final question. And this one, I feel like you should both know. I feel like everyone knows this.
God.
So that's putting some pressure on you.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of the audience, I'd like to point out we record this on a Monday afternoon. So our brains are rough. We're in a rough position.
We're not
mentally.
always tip top.
Not with it. Like we've done a full day of work. We come back, and then we're quizzed on things. Like
Getting the excuses out early.
It's about time we got some recognition, Louis. You're high on the mark.
Okay. This one's going to be a buzz in, and it's going to be fast fire because I feel like you both hopefully know this. But one of the songs on the album is called Reflection.
Mhm.
What color is a mirror?
I actually don't know whether I do know this.
I've got an answer, but I'm really nervous to give it.
Because it's not possible to not have a colour, is it? I guess. Is that...
Well,
Oh no.
at least a standard or average mirror, I guess.
Oh no. Oh no.
Come on, someone's got to do it.
I'm gonna... I'm gonna buzz and say white.
I'm gonna say silver.
Okay. Unfortunately, you would both be wrong. It is green.
Green?
So
I've
if you
never
ever
heard this for my life.
Oh, this
Okay.
actually this is a relief because I think that maybe most people don't know this, or maybe they do.
Okay,
but I didn't.
maybe
know
not. I feel like maybe in my head it's more of a fact than it is. But if you ever like had two mirrors that are like across like from each other, so if you looked in one, you can sort of see that never-ending reflection of yourself.
that. Yeah.
If you do that and like look at the very far down reflections, you start to get like a green tint over everything, and that's because a mirror is ever so slightly worse at reflecting green light than any other light, which means it is green.
Always kind of thought that was just because my only experience of that has been in like changing room environments, like shop environments, and I was just kind of assumed that it was just the sickly yellow glow from the the ceiling lights or whatever affecting that. That's really interesting.
But if I had to pick a point for anyone other than that, white would be the best answer.
Okay, it doesn't
an
get a point
ideal
for that.
mirror.
Don't
An
give him
ideal
a point
mirror.
for that.
An ideal mirror would be.
No,
white, but
it
it's
doesn't. I'm not
Yes,
giving you
I
a
know.
point for that.
I'll take that.
But,
I've
you
just
know,
looked
They're
it up
green.
as well.
give
They're
you-
not
I'll
white.
give you-
They're green.
I'll give you half a point because it's the ideal mirror would be, but
Perfect mirror. Yeah.
it isn't what a mirror is. I don't actually know what the scores are here. Was it 1.5 to Ronan?
1.5 to Ronan.
Did anyone get? No one got the first one, did they?
No, which we kind of
Okay.
feels like we should have known, but
Yeah,
Oh, well.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like maybe not that many people know that.
maybe they know now. Though.
Maybe they do now.
Yeah. Spreading learning.
Yeah.
I've got a very quick hot take about mirrors with the green thing, and I think obviously basically the Matrix, right? The Matrix has that green hue, and I think the reason they were doing it mostly was just like that vague, like computery. You know, like later on they have all of the, all the code is green, but looking at it in the light of the whole mirror thing, it's kind of cool thinking that eerie sense of like slightly off reality that you get when you look too deep into lots of mirrors is slightly green in tone, is also the tone of the Matrix films. There you go. There's my loose connection.
That's good. I like
A pretty cool thought. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
that. On that film theory, we can wrap it up.
Well, thank you very much for having me and hearing me talk about my my favourite album.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh,
Thank
no,
you
yeah.
thank you for coming on and having so much to say about it as well.
Very welcome.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. You can find us on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, etc., etc. We're also on YouTube and on SoundCloud. You can also, if you've had any thoughts or feelings about this episode, you can find us on Instagram at More or Something Else Entirely, or you can email in at moresomethingelseentirely@gmail.com. Obviously they're quite wordy tags, so you can find our links in the description of this episode, as well as timestamps to jump around. We have timestamps for all of our episodes. Give the podcast a rating if you enjoyed. Maybe find one of the polls or the discussion points underneath the episode and give us some feedback. But yeah, thanks all for tuning in. Have a good one.
Communists have nothing to offer but fat cheeks and eyeglasses and lying policemen. And the capitalists proffer napalm and money in green suitcases to the naked. And the communists create heavy industry, but the heart is also heavy.